Burundi and Rwanda were one country, Belgium comes in. They divide both of the two countries into two separate ethnic groups. While there is no basis for the ethnic division because the people are exactly the same language, same background. In Burundi, it came more about regionalism.
What was the size and the scale of genocide in Burundi?
It's not recognized as genocide. We still can't find a name to what happened there. I don't think it will ever stop. They're kind of in a revenge cycle. The real chaos came in 2015. They took many families, many people, many youngsters, and that's the part where me and my family flew from the country to Rwanda. Diplomatically, economically, they're down. It's a country I love. Burundi will be a great country, but for now, the management, the hands, there's no hope. On my story, there are some parts. It's like a Venn diagram between Rwanda, Burundi, and Congo. So some parts are common, so I'll touch on them briefly. Burundi starts as a colony of the Germans. Burundi and Rwanda were one country, and the capital of the colony was in Burundi. So it goes, the World War, the Germans lose the colonies, so Belgium comes in. So the two countries are both in a French system, and the Belgian colonialists installed a system of ethnic division. While in the two countries, there are slight cultural and language differences.
You mean Burundi and Rwanda?
Yeah, but they're twin countries. Yeah. I can disguise myself as a Rwandan. I mean, Rwandans and Burundians, you put them in the same room, you can't tell which one is which. So they instill ethnic division. They divide both of the two countries into two separate ethnic groups.
Inside each of the countries.
Yeah. Okay. It was actually inside both of the countries, but since they were like subdivided, so in Rwanda it was one story, in Burundi was the other story, but the ethnic groups were exactly the same. So two people are from different ethnic groups in Burundi. If you go to Rwanda, people of the ethnic group that is not yours, they will still discriminate you. Yeah.
Still what?
Discriminate you in the sense of they were the two same sides on both sides. So the Rwandans had their own problem, but still divided in two, and the Burundians had the exact same ethnic divisions. While there is no basis for the ethnic division because the people are exactly the same language, same background.
Burundi didn't have the strategy as Rwanda.
Huh?
Burundi didn't have any
almost
issues.
I'm gonna get on that almost. So they go up. So there were royal families because Burundi was a kingdom and Rwanda was a kingdom, and the kings were still there but had zero power. So what the ethnic system was doing was it took one ethnic group and said the kings and the chefs belong to this ethnic group. The low people belong to this ethnic group in both ways. So they first came favorizing the kings and chefs, putting them, favoring them, giving them positions, gifts, prioritizing them. But because they were like, if you guys are the people who lead the country, the best way to control the country is to pass through you. But then those people, because they were leaders at some point, when they realized they were losing power and that installment of division, they started rebelling against the Belgians. Now the Belgians changed their approach. They were like, let's put up the small population against these ones. So they brought a theory in saying, so these monarchs, because monarchy is handed father to son, they're like, this one ethnic group has been ruling you for 400 years. You have been oppressed. So it's your time to rise up. So they started changing things. So they instilled that hatred and say, if these people have been doing bad to you guys, it's your time to get revenge. While what they were calling, the names of the ethnics existed, but as social classes. So they were based on the number of cows someone has. One thing they forgot to mention about Rwanda, I was surprised actually, is the value a cow holds in the Rwandan culture. Like in Rwanda, killing a cow is equivalent to killing a human being. Very bad sin, actually almost worse. So you don't play with cows in Rwanda. You don't play with milk, and there is specific vocabulary to addressing cows, milk, and all the related products. You mess up the vocabulary if you meet with someone from the north, as she was mentioning, very livestock people, that person can even beat you. That's how much value. So if you get 10 cows, they will call you a certain way. If you have below 10 cows, you will be called a certain way. So it was economy. So some person will be called the name when they have 10 cows. Then there is a pest for 1 year. 2 cows die, they go to 8, so they're changed the name.
Yeah.
So when the Belgians came, they established the same 2 classes as ethnic groups that are so different from each other, establishing a theory that the group belonging to the kings, they migrated from Ethiopia. They found the other group living in the area and dominated them in their area. So it was a way of giving them a reason to rise up and go against their brothers. So the theory applied both in Burundi and in Rwanda. So the first kings, the Rwandan king who was there at the time, was opposed the theory very much. They sent him to exile in Congo. That's where he died. So they took his son, who had been manipulated since birth, and then they put him to the throne. They forced to baptize him, actually. The daughter of the king, the princess, was baptized forcibly. She decided to commit suicide because her dad had made her swear, take an oath that the person who will leave the religion of the Rwandans and switch to Christianity will be a traitor to the country. She decided to commit suicide. So it was the same problem in Burundi.
What was the original religion?
Their traditional religion. They believed in one God. They had rights and everything. So it doesn't have a specific name, but no, those were cults, but they called it Imana. Imana is God in, yeah. And it's the same in Burundi, so that's why it's yeah, it's the same thing. So what happened afterwards is that the monarchs, the kings, started to fight to try to get independence. So Burundi and Rwanda got independence on the same day, in the 1st of July, 1962. But one thing to note is that the Rwandan king who had fought for the independence had been killed a few weeks before. He went to a meeting in Burundi, in the capital city, and then he was poisoned. Yeah, he was poisoned, so he left the fight midway, which left the Rwandan fight for independence a bit weakened, although his partisans kept fighting. But in Burundi, there was the prince, the king's son. He kept fighting for it. He was a very wise man, very good at rallying people around him. He was very good with people, especially children, women, and elderly. Yeah, he had studied in Belgium. He was very educated, and he had a way of manipulating the Belgians, actually, even though they dominated. So they had elections. He won the election. At the time, he couldn't be president, so they made them prime minister. But the way the guy was revolutionary, he only been there for 3 months. He had already changed drastically things. He was shot by a sniper. Imagine a sniper in the middle of Burundi in 1962. So they were like, we can't let this man leave. So they shot him. He died. And after he died, his younger brother, another prince, succeeded him in that part. They had a political party because for the elections, they had formed ethnically divided political parties. So he won, but the Belgians were very wise. So they did kind of an opposing thing. While in Rwanda, the so-called oppressed low ethnic group was handed power. In Burundi, it was the so-called supreme that was handed. So there will be tension between the two countries always up to now. We've never had a time the two countries have agreed. They make sure there is imbalance. And another thing that happened is that in Burundi, because the king's part had the country, they were a little bit less powerful than in Rwanda, because in Rwanda the leaders had been fully manipulated. So they were handing the country to someone they could trust, could do evil when they wanted. So in Burundi, what they decided to do was incite a military coup. So the general, through a coup, the prince fled to Belgium. The crazy part is that they had supported the coup, but when he fled, they offered him refuge. Ironic. So then Burundi entered a phase of military chaos, while the discrimination and way to genocide that was in Rwanda was also in Burundi, but it was in opposite directions. So the oppressor, the bad person in Rwanda was like the one who has power in Rwanda, who was oppressing others, was the victim who was being oppressed in Burundi. Actually, some Burundians of the ethnic, so-called ethnic group that committed the 1994 genocide in Rwanda, that group, there are some Burundians of that same group who fled from Burundi because the opposite was happening, and they helped in massacring the Tutsi in Rwanda. That's one of the things I'm very ashamed of.
And that's why Tutsi was fleeing to Burundi, because of in Burundi this
the
part
Tutsi
of
were up. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
in a power.
The complex thing that happened in Rwanda, the culmination.
What was the size and the scale of genocide in Burundi?
It's not a genocide. It's not recognized as genocide. That's what I was going to say. It's complicated. So while in Rwanda, they know who did what to who. In Burundi, it's difficult because while one political party ruled from independence up to 2005, one political party. Actually, if I show you the three pictures of three Burundian presidents who ruled at the time, at the same age, you can tell who is who, because they're direct cousins who lived together, like their moms are siblings. So it was handing down. But the problem was that while in Rwanda, it was more ethnicity, like about ethnicity, in Burundi, it came more about regionalism. So it was more about the people in the south. So those people, while it was ethnic, they said they were Tutsi, but they had this theory saying that there are no Tutsi who live in the north. So they split, I don't know where they brought that from. They split the country in two and said there is no Tutsi that live in the north. Up until now, the north can't match the south in terms of infrastructure. So they brought their siblings to the town. They had all the ministries, the military, all the resources were in the south, everything. And in the south, the Hutu were being very, very, very maltreated. But up to the culmination in 1993, actually the chaos in Burundi began even earlier. 1993, because there was that Tutsi regime that had been ruling since 1962. So the international people, they were like, this is unfair, let's have elections. So they had fair elections. There was a Hutu candidate. He was very good with people. He was very good with convincing people. So the Tutsi government had been excluding, so they only talked to their people. So almost all those presidents for all those 40 years, they had visited only half the country. So there was a part of the country no president has ever been into. So the Hutu candidate was very aware of that. So when he was going to be a candidate, he walked with his bare feet in each and every street of those remote areas. So he had everyone on his side. The elections, just as predicted, he won. But the military, the parliament was still in the hands of the Tutsi. He was the only one at the top. So he tried to incite something like change, but he was so powerless that they killed him just like any other person. Imagine a country that kills their president. So they got sanctioned, a lot of sanctions. So Burundi is the only country where I saw someone take power with a coup d'etat, get thrown by a coup d'etat, not die, and then after that one, come back and have another coup d'etat and get back to power, and then him also being overthrown by another coup d'etat. It's an amazing country. So what happened was after
What's the population of Burundi?
the population right now, around 10 million.
So more or less like Rwanda, right?
Yeah. A little bit behind. Yeah. So what happened after that was that after that president, because of the sanctions, they organized elections again, and this time another Hutu candidate won. But because of what had happened to the previous Hutu candidate, this one was very angry, and he had genocide ideology. He had studied in Rwanda, and he was a very good friend of the Rwandan president of the time, who was very genocidal. So in the trigger incident of the 1994 genocide against Tutsi, while there are so many causes and it had been prepared for years, but the trigger was the shutting down of the president's plane. So the president of Rwanda was going home from a conference in Tanzania. Near the airport, the Kanombe airport, the current Kigali airport, the plane was almost going to land. It was shot. A bomb and exploded. He died. Crazy thing, the president of Burundi died in that same plane too. So that's how tight the history is. But the difference is that while in Rwanda the government was dominated by the Hutu, in Burundi was a mixture. The top was held by the Hutu, but the military was still in the hands of the Tutsi. So after that incident, while in Rwanda the genocide officially started, in Burundi we still can't find a name to what happened there. Because the government started killing people, obviously, but it was the government of Tutsi, the military. They started killing Hutu very massively in the south, but they sent 0 troops in the north. They said no Tutsi lives in the north. Yeah. So what happened was any Hutu who was in the south died. So some of them tried to flee to the north, even to Rwanda, to go help get revenge on the opposite tribe. But the crazy part is that there was a large Tutsi population in the north, and they were left exposed. So they were told, you know what your brothers are doing in the south? So any Tutsi who was in the north was killed. So that's the reason now in Burundi, I don't think it will ever stop. They're kind of in a revenge cycle. So the Tutsi said, you killed us. And the Hutu be like, but you killed us. In fact, they killed each other. What happened was that one hill, like this hill, would have the majority Hutu population. The other hill would have the majority Tutsi population. So on this hill, the Hutu will kill all the Tutsi. The opposite hill, just like 1 kilometer away, the opposite will happen. So you can't know who to blame. Their forgiveness journey will be more difficult.
It always was during the 1994.
Yeah, while
the same time.
Same exact time. While in Rwanda, it got executed, very tragic, but when the RPF took over, they started a difficult but it has proven successful journey of reconciliation, which is where they are today. But in Burundi, it didn't go that way because.
So in Burundi, it recognized like civil war, right? Not genocide, civil war.
Yeah. So the current status of Burundi is still infected by that. So in 2005, after transitional government, the Arusha Peace Conference, they tried to solve the issues in the region because there were a lot. So they were like, let's. So the Tutsi people had taken power again, and the country got sanctioned. So the international bodies be like, let's have elections. So there were Hutu rebels that were in the forest shooting down people. Actually, they didn't take even 1 centimeter of the country, but they were causing chaos in the country. So they were like, let those rebels come back to the country, form a political party, let's have elections. So they had elections, but just because of how the Tutsi power operated, imagine having a country for 40 years and only visiting half of it. The Hutu candidate knew exactly that was the weak point. He went to the masses again. He mobilized the masses more than the current government, and in the elections of 2005, he won. So when he won, he started ruling, one of the best presidents I've seen with my eyes. At that point, he had a 5 years mandate, part of the constitution, from 2005 up to 2010. one of the best. One of the best. So he had another second mandate, so he went for elections, but because of what he had done, it was incomparable. Amazing. So he won again in the elections of 2010 for another mandate that will reach 2015. But what happened was, while he was a rebel, when he won, he brought the people he was with in the bushes, illiterate people who had never gone to school, who only knew how to slaughter other human beings and shoot. So he brought the same exact people and put them into his ranks. Ministers, irrespective of you having, there is that guy we like to draw an example on. He originates from my mother's native district. He only had four primary, his education level is 4 primary school years, but he was the provincial military, I would say, officer controlling the whole district. So that's how they were, irrespective of education. And those people, so the old Tutsi regime, they had lost power, but they were the educated ones. So they had a way of using educated means to target them. They go to the media, they insult them, they criticize them. And those wild military rebel guys, they didn't have diplomatic ways of solving things. So you invite me to a debate on radio. So you win the argument on the radio. What will I do? Officially, during the daytime, I would come with my car and my bodyguard. We will shoot down a political famous person, marketplace, at noon, shoot down, we go. So they go to the authorities because it's the same circle. They say nothing. So it started in a state of chaos. And then in 2014, he was left with 1 year till 2015. He started saying something like wanting to go for a third mandate, which is against the law. But he was having an excuse like, the first time I wasn't voted by the people themselves, I was voted by the parliament. But at the time, the constitution of the country was representative democracy, which was right. So he had 1 mandate and the second mandate. He was arguing that the first mandate wasn't legitimate at all. So he went up to 2015, which is where the chaos began. So up to that point, Burundi and Rwanda were good friends, actually. So the real chaos came in 2015. It was in April, when he publicly announced that he was going to be the candidate for his party for the next elections. So the youth went to the streets again. But this time they were faced by the highest brutality I've ever seen. At the time, I was in the city. I remember the first day I went to school and found there was no one. So on my way back, because the people manifesting, if they found you doing your usual business, not shutting down, they would say you support the government. So even if you're a student, they will beat you, sometimes even kill you. So I remember on my way back to home, I had to take out my uniform, put it in the bag, and then take some ground and ashes and take some leaves. I joined them. We were shouting the streets, but because they were doing the rounds, I waited for them to reach my street, my gate. That was it. It was very brutal. So they will be killing the police people, hanging them on trees, cutting their throats alive, sometimes wrapping a tire around. That one was very common. They tie a tire, they put gasoline, and then they burn. So only the top part burned, and they throw in the street. Very, very brutal. But the police reacted the same way. So they would let the youth fight during the day. So they would bring something like paint. They would throw paint at the people, and you couldn't remove that paint from your clothes. So what they will do was that they will wait till the evening. They come in, they check every single house. They find a cloth with the paint. Everyone in that family, you would wake up in the morning, your neighbors are not there. They took many families, many people, many youngsters. They will dig public graves somewhere in the forest. They throw like 1,000 dead bodies in there. It was very brutal. And that's the part where me and my family flew from the country to Rwanda. Yeah, my dad was also arrested because he was really politically active at the time. He was politically active from family because his father, my grandfather, had been a key figure in the last old government, and he had been taken down because of nepotism. So they were kind of groovy. So he was taken there. We thought he was dead. We first moved before him to the border, and then we left into Rwanda 2 months when he joined us. Even now, I still almost can't believe he's alive because no one would come back from that place. So it was that. Then we left the country. So the guy, despite all the opposition, he ended up a couple of days before we left. Actually, before we left, there was a failed coup. So the military tried to overtake him. It was a coup that lasted 3 days. So the guy was president for 3 days. Actually, that's how rude it is. But he was overthrown again, and he flew to Rwanda. And that's where the conflict between Burundi and Rwanda started, because the guy was very clever. He flew to Rwanda very secretly and went into a refugee camp. The UNHCR was already receiving Burundian refugees. So he went low-key, disguised him as a local, him and his crew. So half of his crew was taken in Burundi, but him and a few like 20 big generals, they escaped. So they come low-key in Rwanda, they don't know them. They go to the camp, they get registered as refugees. So the problem now between Burundi and Rwanda is that Burundi came after them and told Rwanda, hey, I know people who did something wrong here. Give them to me. I want to try them to justice. But Rwanda say, I don't have rights over those people. The UN will kill me. They are registered as refugees. No country hands refugees to the people they flew away from. So that's still the problem, even now. That's where it started. So, but before they used to be friends. So we have been in Rwanda since. So every person who's been in Rwanda for more than 2 months, every time you go back, you're taken down. They say you're a spy. You guys have a military. You're just coming to see the ground, to map the ground. Later, your brothers will come too. But the Burundians tried some rebelling. They went to the forest. That's the incident she was talking about. So that corner. So the French, during the 1994 genocide, they covered the perpetrators of the genocide. They covered them and they escaped into Congo. So they protected them from RPF. RPF chased them, but then they entered a French protected area. So they flew into Congo. They couldn't go inside Congo, so they decided to stay in the forest. They are called the FDLR. They're still active, very bad genocide ideologists. Sometimes they planned attacks back on Rwanda even after the years, killed people. Yeah, so, but then what was the mixture here is that those forests, the Rwandan side is controlled, clear, but the Congolese and Burundian sides are not controlled. So the Burundian rebels went to that part as well. So when they would mix up with the Rwandan genocide perpetrators, the mission would be won, because the FDLR have been in Congo for a long time. They have resources in terms of guns and equipment and everything. So there will be an exchange. You give us manpower to launch attacks on Rwanda because we are few, and then we give you guys guns to attack Burundi. So that's when they were causing chaos both in Rwanda and both in Burundi. So their job was to only kill. They caused a couple of incidents, even though they became neutralized by the Rwandan military a few years after. Yeah, but that place wasn't safe. So that's the problem now. And the guy ended up taking the third mandate. He ruled it over, all the opposite people out. And then in 2020, during COVID, that was the end of his mandate. He appointed another candidate, but I think some people were unhappy with his choice because he chose the most unpopular person. The closest big generals we all expected could replace him, he chose none. He brought a guy no one knew about. So I think people were unhappy about him. So he died of a heart attack, but he had never had heart disease his whole life. He had been the most sporty football player I had ever known. He was the best football player. And he was a very strong man. never been physically ill, but obviously was poisoned from the testimony of his wife. So the candidate took over from 2020. His mandate is ending this year in 2025. And since that time, so Burundi economically has been down because of sanctions with the countries. Diplomatically down. I don't think they have an embassy in Russia. They don't. They don't. In many countries, they don't. So diplomatically, economically, they're down. But it's a country I love, though I don't want to think about it because it hurts, because I can't do nothing about it. So naturally, Burundi is more advantaged compared to Rwanda. They have, when it comes to agriculture, they have more agricultural areas than Rwanda. Lakes when it comes to water, especially for irrigation and hydroelectric purposes. They have more water, more minerals, more land a bit. They had more touristic attractions, but because of malmaintenance, all of them, like the species of animals and the forest, are almost extinct by now. And one more thing I will point out is the fish, the lake. So there is a lake called Tanganyika. It's a lake they share with Tanzania, Zambia, and Burundi. There is that fish species called Ndagara that only lives in that part. The thing I miss the most in Burundi. So it's one of the things that Burundi would base on to be like one of the biggest selling points if they were to export. But because of overfishing and everything, the fish production is down as well. So in terms of economic potential, Burundi will be a great country, but for now, the management, the hands, there's no hope. So that's the full story of Burundi.
Very detailed story. Thank you. It's a political overview.
Yeah.
Can I say that I've just realized it only during our discussion that Rwanda and Burundi, it's one nation. Then before dividing by this Berlin conference, part of so very big part of Uganda is also Rwanda. Then very big part of Congo, also Rwanda. So Rwanda was very it's more bigger country or unit in the beginning of 19th century.
Yeah.
And then it was divided.
That's actually the problem with Congo. I don't know why they didn't mention it. So the people they say who are so-called fighting in the east, they are not Congolese. They are Rwandans who were cut by borders and isolated in Congo.
What you were talking about?
Yeah, so they can't go to Rwanda. They say you Rwandans should go to Rwanda, but they can't go to Rwanda. It's their land.
Yeah.
One of the most ironic part is there is a volcano in that region where they're fighting. So that volcano is called the Congolese volcano, but it has the most Rwandan name. It's called Nyiragongo. So it's so ironic. Like, how would you name a volcano? Imagine a volcano in Rwanda being given a Russian name. Impossible. So those are Rwandans who had been there for centuries, cut. The first regimes of Congo were friendly to them until it stopped. So it got messed up during the genocide because the influx of Rwandans fleeing the genocide in Rwanda, they put some pressure on that regional corner, and the Congolese were like, you guys should go back. Especially that the Congolese supported actively the genocide perpetrators. Yeah.
Whew. Yeah, diving into. Thank you very much for your stories.